e3.gamespot.com. I'm very delighted to be joined by Alex Amancio, creative director on Assassin's Creed Unity. So this is a game that I feel like the Parisian thing has been a leak that has existed in the video game community for about 4 years now.
Yeah.
Like there was before Black Flag came out, there was always, are they going to go to revolutionary Paris? And finally now we're seeing Unity. For folks who haven't seen it yet, just give the sort of set the scene for where Assassin's Creed Unity take place.
All right. Essentially, Unity takes place in Paris. The reason we chose Paris was because we for this first iteration of Assassin's Creed that's fully next gen, we really wanted to go back to the basics. So large, sprawling urban area. We looked at many cities, and we quickly fell upon Paris. I mean, Paris is the most visited city in the world. There's literally a landmark at every corner. So we decided very early on that Paris is going to be the place. But when in Paris? That was a real question. So we started looking at what the next generation bring us in terms of breakthroughs. And Assassin's Creed is all about social stealth, massive crowds. When can we find large, massive crowds in Paris? French Revolution.
Yeah, it was almost like watching Les Mis, the video game at stages where you're walking up the barricades. So in terms of Paris itself, the different places you go to, is like Sacré-Cœur, Notre Dame, Versailles, like where are the touchstones you'll be visiting?
Most Parisian landmarks that existed at that time, so like the Eiffel Tower obviously wasn't in 18th century Paris, but all of the landmarks are there. We do have Versailles, we even have the village around Versailles.
So are you saying, it sounds like the Eiffel Tower is going to be the ultimate synchronization point. I'm guessing you're going to be able to get to the top of it.
Well, if it existed in the 18th century, we would.
Excellent. Okay, so this is the, you showed off a bunch of stuff actually on conference day. You showed off the CG trailer, and you also showed off quite a long gameplay segment as well. What are we looking at here? This is the CG trailer. What are we trying to get across in this trailer?
All right, this trailer really focuses on what the inception of the French Revolution, the beginning. This is the prise de la Bastille. This is when the Parisian population, hungry, famished, poor, took up arms and took possession of the Bastille, a symbol for the corrupt nobility, and they essentially stormed it. The reason they stormed it was actually to steal gunpowder that was stashed inside. And this is what you're seeing here at the end, is that essentially that the governor of the Bastille, this guy that we're seeing here, he was, and this is historical, apparently he was threatening to ignite the powder and blow everything away. So the idea is the assassins let the population do their, what they were going to do. All they did was safeguard, prevented the governor from destroying the gunpowder so that the population could have it.
So there seems to be a theme between both this and the gameplay you showed of the assassins not necessarily carrying out the assassination themselves, but actually throwing the victim to the crowd and letting them have their way with it. Is that a theme? Because that seems to be a theme of what revolutionary France was as well. If you think about Francois Robespierre and whatnot.
Of course, yeah, and you certainly have some of that in the game. You obviously get to assassinate characters, but the crowd is, we have three factions in the game. We have the protectors. These are like the guards. They're cops. They're going to keep the balance within the city. Their role is to keep order. We have aggressors. These are they're represented by revolutionary extremists. These are going to be provoking people and the player throughout the game. Just walk around systemically in the crowd. And then the crowd is the third faction. Some people are armed and they will react to certain situations. They will take part in the action. So it's a bit what we're seeing here. And I mean, we showed two demos yesterday, right? We showed the single player one that focused on the systemic world, and we showed the co-op one that essentially showed the co-op experience. And if you notice, in the first one, we showed the co-op one. The theme was the title of that demo was the Dawn of the Revolution. It's set in 1789, and you're essentially killing a noble. But if you look at the second, it's set in 1793. It's called the title is the Reign of Terror, and you're actually killing an official. So the revolution changes a lot in 4 years, and we're actually following that throughout the game.
The Assassin's Creed franchises, many of these games have spanned quite a long period of time. Are you going to do something similar here with Unity?
Well, for Unity, we are going to span. I'm not going to go into too many details because I don't want to spoil it. But but we will span quite a few decades. There's going to be the story is quite epic.
Cool. The protagonists in these series have often been the touchstone of whether people like them or not. You know, there's some games where people don't care who they play as, whereas the reaction to say Connor and whatnot in previous games, it evokes, it shows you how much people want to connect with them. Can you tell us a little bit about the protagonist in Assassin's Creed Unity? Who is he, and is he Parisian?
So you're essentially playing a guy called Arno. Arno is his mother was Austrian, his father's French. That's why he has that name. Arno is a Germanic name. It means eagle. How
convenient.
So did Ezio and Altair also mean eagle?
Yeah.
So essentially, Arno's quest is one of redemption. He feels responsible for an event that happened to him. He lost his father, and he feels responsible for that. And the assassins, he joins the assassins because they're sort of a means to obtaining that redemption. What's cool about it is that Arno's narrative actually has him learning what it truly is, what it truly means to be an assassin. And players are going to be experiencing that with Arno. So at the same time, we're also introducing the assassins to the fans in a new light, because Assassin's Creed Unity, because it is the first truly next-gen iteration, completely next-gen iteration of the franchise, we really wanted to take this opportunity to sort of start with a new beginning. Not that we're, erasing everything that happened, not at all. Assassin's Creed is always canon, but the franchise has started back in 2007, and it's very narrative-heavy. And typically, it's always good at one point to sort of start anew. Not only for new fans, but even for the long-running fans. And Assassin's Creed Unity is a new beginning, and Arno will sort of reflect that new beginning, because you will be discovering the Assassins and the Templars through his eyes.
Excellent. So to that end then, another staple of the franchise has been the interaction with the Animus and the secondary story that's happening. Are you guys going to include any of that in Unity at all?
There's actually where our present day narrative is completely new. I'm not going to go into any details about that, but I can tell you one thing. You will be the protagonist, not you as a Abstergo employee. You, each player will be recognized as being the protagonist of this game. Okay,
interesting. We'll have to see more, I guess. You're keeping your lips tightly sealed. There's been an emphasis on co-op, obviously with the demo you guys showed. I've a lot of people on Twitter were asking me earlier today to sort of, if you can get some clarification around that. Are you playing single player most of the time, and then the co-op stuff is within missions, like almost instant space within those missions?
Exactly. It's all within one unified world, right? So the Paris is seamless. There's no loading, interiors, exteriors, undergrounds, and there's many different types of missions. You're playing, for example, Arno's DNA memory, is his sort of quest. This is Arno's redemption story, and it's a solo experience. Throughout the city, you have tons of side missions. This is something that we didn't really focus on Assassin's Creed before, and we're really doing for Unity. Unity is really about carving your own path through the city. That means, discovering your own unique missions. It's about exploring and discovering Paris. You have murder mysteries. You have...
This is one, for instance.
That's actually a murder mystery.
And it comes up join mission.
Exactly, and added to quest log, so you can have multiple open quests. There's obviously systemic stuff happening, like systemic fights. I think there's one breaking out right there on the right. The crowd and aggressors fighting it out. But you have contracts. You have these treasure hunts through the city. Nostradamus, who used to live in Paris, she left these clues, and you can follow the clues to different monuments and get rewards. So the city is literally littered with all of these different quests. And then you have what we call Brotherhood missions. These are missions that Arno did for the assassins with other assassins. So you're doing these missions from 1 to 4 players. So you can join up with up to 3 friends. But from every player's perspective, they're actually playing Arno. It's sort of like Watch Dogs. Everybody's Aiden Pierce. However, what we are doing is that we're letting everybody customize Arno in a way where, for example, you get skill points in the game, and you can choose to spend those skill points and buy and upgrade skills. And then you have all these gear elements. You have, hoods, you have the actual suit, you have gauntlets, gloves, you have belts, you have boots, and all of these different elements actually, not only are they visually different, but they have an actual impact on gameplay. Then you have all the weapons. Traditionally in AC, weapons were they all had the same stats. Not anymore. All the weapons.
Also, is there a straight-up cover mechanic in this as well?
There is a cover mechanic. We have a stealth mode that we added. I mean, a lot of fans were talking about this. It's not that we didn't want to do it before. We were just, we wanted to do it right. And so I think we actually pulled it off. Stealth mode means that you're more silent, you're more precise. Assassin's Creed is there's always this a fight between being efficient, fast, and navigate quickly through the city, and being very stealthy and precise. And we're often trying to guess what you want to do in the game, which every time we try to guess what the player wants to do, there's an off chance that we might get it wrong, which explains why sometimes you're tailing a dude and all of a sudden your character sticks on a wall, right? By creating a specific stealth mode, we're reducing the number of times that we're actually trying to guess what you're trying to do. And that removes a lot of those frustrating elements.
I want to talk a little bit about, in a second, just about the motion, because I'm seeing a lot of new types of animations and the way in which Arno is actually moving around the world. First of all, though, just to briefly you touched on the fact that every character is actually playing as Arno. So in the co-op stuff, it's you're not viewing a customizable character, as it were. You're actually just viewing a cipher of each one of Arno, is it?
What we're doing is we're keeping Arno's unique gear.
Yeah.
And just putting we have a database of assassins' heads, generic assassin's head, and we're just putting that head over the body of each individual Arno.
Yeah.
Because we really wanted to keep that individual gear, because that way people can tell you, like, where'd you get that cool suit? Oh, I completed this mission, and you do that, and then you can get that suit. We still wanted to showcase that.
I guess I know there's a bit of a hubbub about the female protagonist stuff, but I guess, it's not that you're creating your own character.
Exactly.
It is that it's just a cipher for someone else.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So yes, the actual movement, integral part of the Assassin's Creed franchise. You guys started off with the single-player demo. I want to say this one, right at the top of a building. And when you descend, the movement is quite different to what we're used to. Is there a mechanical reason for that, or is it just showing off the protagonist his own mentality about scaling walls?
It's a little bit of both. We always try to get our protagonist's personality into his fight, his navigation, and Arno is a very very to the point, very sharp. His movements are more Krav Maga rather than Kung Fu, so very direct, very efficient. And his navigation style is really very efficient also. He doesn't wait for a haystack to do a leap of faith. He does what we call control descent. And it was reflected by those cool animations, but there's actually a mechanical element to it. You can either parkour by holding the trigger and holding, one button will have you parkour up. The other one, for example, the A button will have you parkour up, the B button will have you parkour down. You just hold it, and we'll be trying to figure out your most efficient parkour.
So you're basically trying to make it so that you don't have to put haystacks in every single corner in Paris.
Exactly.
Okay, we're coming to the end of this demo. Can you just tell us a little bit about what's happening here? Is this very indicative of the assassinations in this game? Because this kind of reminds me a lot of the first game where you're killing somebody while, I don't know, I remember specifically you killing somebody who, not on a guillotine, but on a hanging. On a stage. So just per detail, what's happening here?
Yeah, it was a little, seriously, we really were trying to sort of a little wink at Assassin's Creed 1 and show that from showing that we were going back to those basics. Essentially, all the assassinations in Unity are in that spirit. They are open-ended. So we talk a lot about the low-level core mechanics of the game. The navigation, the fight, and the stealth. But another thing that we really tackled in Unity is all the mid-level stuff. So how you apply those core mechanics contextually in the world. Okay. So the missions. And missions have evolved throughout the franchise, right? But we were essentially still operating on a basis formed in AC2, which was mission blocks. You had tails, you had eavesdrops, fight missions, all that stuff. What we decided to do with Unity was open it up more. So we have two large major types of mission. The first are AMMs. They're adaptive mission mechanics. I'll give you an example So let's say your mission, your narrative mission, is to get to a secret hideout of some bad guys, right? And the way to do so is to tail an enemy. So traditionally, you would be tailing that enemy, and if he spots you, we desync, and then you restart.
Or if he gets too far away, you desync.
You desync, right? Now, what we would do is, essentially, if he spots you, he will bolt and start running. It becomes a chase. If you lose him, it becomes a locate.
Okay.
If while bolting, while running away, he gets into a systemic fight with some other NPCs and gets killed, well, then maybe if you loot the body, you find this address and you know where he was heading. But since he's now missing, they might be doubling up the guards at that place.
Okay.
So we really give more flexibility, and we try to let the player play like he wants to play. Our second major improvement, or innovation, I should say, is black box design. So our missions are now, our assassination missions are, and all the co-op missions are what we call black box missions, 360-degree missions.
Okay.
We show you a physical space. It might be an interior, but it could be an exterior. and we tell you, explore, find opportunities, and perform it the way you want to perform it. So you can replay it different ways. Sometimes by finding side missions, you might find a secret passage that leads directly and shows you a completely original way of performing that assassination.
That echoes a lot of the first Assassin's Creed game, where that's essentially what you were doing, was building up to that climax, actually, like doing it yourself. But I guess in doing it this way, you're not forcing people into doing all this.
Exactly. The whole idea is, I always say this, it's carving your own path through Paris. But that's really the case, not only with the side missions, but even how you perform these missions, right? It's really about, you spend your skill points on Arno the way you want to do it. You get the gear that you want to sort of reinforce the way you already play the game, and then the game permits you to play it that way.
So you're leaning quite heavily into the co-op stuff this time around. Are you going to have multiplayer at all as a separate thing? I know there was tower defense as well was applied to one of the older games, or is it purely single player with the co-op stuff?
No, so it is purely a unified world. So there's no second game with another mechanic, and we do have a really cool element in the game about it resembles more the stuff that we had in AC2 and in Brotherhood with the Villa, where you do have stuff that you can perform in the city that will change the nature of the toy district by district, that will essentially play with, again, that personalization of the city, making the city your own. So the stuff that you make, that you perform in the city, will actually have an impact on the density of aggressors versus allies in the city, which will, since this time around, we also embrace the toy during missions instead of sort of switching it off. By doing that stuff, you actually have a direct impact on your missions.
Cool. Alex Amancio, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Creative Director of Assassin's Creed Unity. Lastly, just tell the folks at home when and where we're going to see it.
October 28th for PS4, Xbox One, and PC.
Awesome. Thanks again for coming on the GameSpot stage. We'll be back in a couple of minutes with the crew. Ubisoft all up in this place.